to the ESD Control Program training session. ESD refers to a sudden transfer of electrostatic charge between bodies at different electrostatic potentials. Some products, especially solid-state electronics, are particularly susceptible to ESD damage. Why do we care about ESD? J Standard 001 requires VACCO to adhere to ANSI ESD S20.20. ANSI ESD 20.20 compliance requires companies to appoint an ESD control program manager, maintain ESD control program, maintain an ongoing ESD training program, implement ESD safeguards and practices, provide initial recurrent ESD awareness and prevention training to all personnel who handle or otherwise come in contact with any ESD sensitive items. The VACCO ESD Control Manager shall be the Director of Operations. ESD program shall be per ESD 1431. This class represents your ESD training. Remember that ANSI ESD S20.20 and VI ESD 1431 are VACCO's governing documents for ESD control. What causes ESD? Built-up charges seek a balance. Positive charge versus negative charge. Larger charge versus smaller charge. Anytime there are two different electrostatic potentials present, we have a risk of ESD. Electrostatic discharge is instantaneous. Discharge energy causes heat. Heat causes damage. ESD hazards. Processes as assembly, cleaning, test, and repair. Cleaning or drying by fluid or evaporation, common plastic, solder suckers, cryogenic sprays, electrostatic copiers, heat guns, blowers, sandblasting, solder irons with ungrounded tips, solvent brushes, especially synthetic brushes, spray cleaners, temperature chambers, objects such as chairs, either fiberglass, finished wood, or vinyl, objects such as clothing, common clean room coats, common synthetic personal garments, cotton, and non-conductive shoes, objects such as floors, common vinyl tile or sheeting, sealed concrete, waxed or finished wood, processes such as packaging and handling, common bubble wrap, foam, plastic trays, plastic tote boxes, common plastic bags, wraps, envelopes, scotch tape, masking tape, parts bins, objects such as surfaces, common vinyls or plastics, waxed, painted, or varnished surfaces, all generate ESD. Low voltage generated by common ESD hazards. Walking across carpet, 1500 volts, or dry environment, 35,000 volts. Walking over a vinyl tile, 250 volts, or 12,000 volts when it's dry. Worker at a bench, 100 volts, 6,000 volts in a dry room. Vinyl envelopes for work construction, 600 volts, 7,000 volts during Santa Ana. Poly bags picked up from a bench, 1,200 volts, or, when it's really dry, 20,000 volts. Work chair padded with polyurethane foam, 1,500 volts, or, on the dry day again, 18,000 volts. Failure mechanisms in ESD damage, thermal breakdown, interconnect burnout, or oxide breakdown caused by heat that builds up faster than it can be bled away. Metallization melt, traces or vias may liquefy, causing an open or short circuit, or just weaken the part. Dielectric breakdown. Dielectric is punctured. Breakdown voltage becomes far lower than designed. Remember, as electronics contain ever smaller parts, ESD becomes more of a concern. Examples of ESD damage. Catastrophic damage. Here, a capacitor's dielectric has been punctured. This is with magnification of 10,500 times. Examples of ESD damage. Latent damage. A latent defect is more difficult to detect than a catastrophic failure. A device that is exposed to an ESD event may be partially degraded and may pass all testings at the plant. However, the operating life of the device may be reduced significantly. A product or system incorporating devices with latent defects may experience premature failure after the user places them in service. Latent failures can be very costly and to locate and repair. In certain circumstances, they may cause personal hazard or even death. These figures show ESD damage on the input of a device during ESD simulation test. Remember that when ESD damage is not severe enough to cause failure during testing, it can cause failure in the field. Factors that increase ESD risk. When two materials with neutrally charged surfaces come in contact and then separate, the materials undergo triocharging and surface charge levels are no longer neutral. For housekeeping, insulative or non-ESD protective items left in work area, such as bubble wrap, papers, styrofoam, etc. Lack of ESD ground straps, smocks, etc. Relative humidity. At lower relative humidity, charge generation will increase significantly. Material. Kinds of material subjected to contact, friction, or separation. Basics of ESD control. Identify ESD protected areas. ESD protected areas are marked with a sign or flow tape or other indication. All ESD precautions are required in these areas. Recognize ESD sensitive items. ESDS items are marked with appropriate labels or stickers. Understand ESD risks or control techniques. Recognize ESD labels. Understand dangers of ESD. Observe ESD practices around any conductor within protected areas. Remove any insulative items, charge generators within protected areas. Product markings. ESD sensitive devices may be recognized by their distinctive markings or annotations on accompanying paperwork. Distinctive ESD markings are shown below. Remember, there are only 3 ESD symbols. ESD protected areas feature at the ESD workstation, an ESD table mat, ESD wristbands, smocks of various sizes, ESD continuous monitors, EPA boundary caution signs or floor marking tape, humidity monitor, grounding line, ESD air ionizers, to be used when the humidity is below 30%. At ESD supplies, anti-static bags, tubs, and boxes, anti-static mat cleaner, anti-static packing tape, ESD hand lotion. Protected area prohibited items. Examples of items prohibited in the ESD protected area: adhesive tapes, unless ESD protective, insulative materials, newspaper, plastics, etc., food, drink, food wrappers, styrofoam cups. Any of the above at least 12 inches away from ESD matte and ESD sensitive items. Remember to keep your ESD workstation clear of these static generating products. Personal grounding and gloves. Wrist straps, either constantly monitored or tested daily. ESD garments such as Spock's ESD gloves. It is required in the clean room or for documentation. Only use ESD safe gloves. Remember to wear a ground strap. Personal grounding exceptions. Safety. When working with power sources over 250 volts AC, personnel ESD grounding methods below should never be used. No wrist straps, no ESD footwear, no ESD garments. Ionizers are required to neutralize electrostatic charges where high voltage power sources are present. Ground fault circuit interrupters, GFCI, and other safety precautions shall be installed wherever personnel may come in contact with electrical power sources of high voltage. Remember also that when the item is sealed and properly packed in an ESD compliant container, a ground strap is not needed. Work surface grounding. Static dissipating tabletop mat, conductive cable runs to building ground. Note, for ESD certified work area calibration requests, contact facilities. How are ESD sensitive parts identified on drawings? In the lower left of your drawing, there shall be notes delineating ESD parts. In the notes section, you will notice the grasping hand in the triangle. That is your ESD sensitive part identifier. Device classification. ESDS, electrostatic device susceptibility. How sensitive is your device? Is it a class 0? 0 to 249 volts. Very sensitive to ESD damage. Is it a class 1? 250 to 1,999 volts. Is it a class 2? 2,000 to 3,999 volts. Or is it a class 3? 4,000 volts and above. The ESD threat is actually growing as features on chips and components become smaller and more highly integrated. It takes less of an ESD event to result in damage. In the future, VACO is likely to have more and more ESD sensitive products. Discrepant material. Material suspected to be discrepant will be dispositioned by Material Review Board, MRB. Handle discrepant material in accordance with ANSI ESD S 20.20 and VI ESD 1431, the electrostatic discharge prevention and control plans. Remember, VI ESD 1431 and ANSI ESD S 20.20 are the governing documents. Employee responsibilities. All VACO employees shall check wrist strap connectivity before handling any ESDS item, either using an audible tester or via an automatic sensor that beeps when connection is broken. Ensure ground straps fit snug and make good skin contact before handling ESD sensitive items. Do not wear your ground strap over your sleeve. Do not work operations during periods of low humidity, less than 30% relative humidity, without an approved ionizer in place. Be aware that personnel who fail to observe required ESD practices shall have ESD certifications revoked and shall attend retraining. Avoid wearing ESD protective garments outside the work areas, since this practice may result in contamination and ESD protection. VACO employees' responsibilities continued. Complete required initial ESD training and certification as applicable to job title. Attend required ESD certification training every 2 years if performing ESD sensitive processes. As applicable, maintain evidence of any required ESD training completion at your workstation or on your person at all times. Never place common plastic, styrofoam, cellophane, food items, or personal grooming articles in ESD protected areas. Do not handle unwrapped ESDS items except in protected static safe work areas or grounded workbenches. Wear an ESD protective garment and ground strap when operating on electronics above 250 volts before handling any ESDS items. Remember that when humidity is low, risk of ESD damage goes up. What are logs for? Logs shall be filled out when performing electronic assembly. These should also be in routers and work instructions. Here are primary VACO reference documents. Remember, package and transport ESD sensitive items properly. Here are primary VACO reference documents. Remember, package and transport ESD sensitive items properly. In closing, ESD is a real and dangerous threat to electronic components. VACO must reduce risk to our products caused by ESD damage. Each of us must recognize and prevent ESD threats. Thank you, and good luck.